And his speech is My Grandma.
It all started with my grandmother. My grandmother, Dixie Fern is her name, Dixie Fern Parkins. She was one of those people that when you meet her, you just fall in love with her. You are enamored with her. She is an artist at heart. My grandmother always said to me, Skylar, if you're going to eat with us, you need to learn to cook. So I would cook with my grandmother. I started cooking when I was 8 years old with my grandmother. She let me make the sausage. Now, this is a sausage that's already pre-cooked. All you have to do is just take it out of the freezer and heat it up. But all the same, I was in charge of the sausage. I could barely reach the top of the stove, and I was going like this with the spatula, and I was cooking, helping with breakfast. She always did huge breakfasts. She loved to cook pancakes and French toast. She would let me cook the eggs sometimes if they were scrambled. I couldn't flip the eggs at age 8, but she let me do that. So from my grandmother, I learned how to enjoy cooking. That's where I got my love from cooking, was from my grandmother. Now, my wife would attest that I love to spend time in the kitchen. I have all kinds of interesting pans, like crusade pans, French culinary pans. I love to smoke meats and make my own wine and vinegars and sauerkraut, and I'm always doing experiments inside the kitchen. And I think that I feel that's where that came from, was my grandmother. My grandmother, it all started with her. She said to me that, Skylar, you need to learn how to dance. We're going to sign you up for dance lessons. If you sign up for dance lessons, I'll pay for it. I never signed up for dance lessons. No. I never did. But what I did get to do with my grandmother was learn how to dance from her. When she was 8 years old, she tap danced on the radio, and it was hair-raising at that time. She raised eyebrows, and she still has that little recording of her tap dancing on the radio. That was a really big deal for her. My grandmother, we would put on old LPs of Guy Lombardo and Lawrence Welk, and she would twirl around in her apron in the kitchen. We learned how to dance the turkey trot, the foxtrot, the tango, the hesitation, all of these old-time dances. We were dancing in the kitchen, and she would show me how to do that. I just have the fondest memories from that. From dancing, I learned how to dance, how to partner dance. I was part of the Hepcats here in Wenatchee. I went off to college, and I was part of the dance troops that were there, partner dancing, learning the Lindy Hop, the East Coast, West Coast, Carolina Shag, all of these wonderful partner dances. That's actually how I met Patricia. I fell in love with her on the dance floor. My grandmother, it all started with her. She also told me, you need to learn how to play an instrument. If you sign up for lessons, I have a violin, and I will give you a violin. Her sister, Ethel, she was paralyzed from polio when she was, I think it was 11 or 12. She got contracted polio, and she was in a wheelchair for the majority of her life. She would darn socks to make extra money, but that was what she did. She ran a hotel, a wonderful hotel up in Leavenworth, and from that hotel we got to meet all kinds of interesting people. My mother grew up there, and she really loved to play instruments. She had violins, she had flutes, she had clarinets. She had all of these amazing instruments, a whole room devoted to instruments. Ethel said that if I learn how to play, she'll give me an instrument. But I never did learn how to play violin. However, I did learn how to play flute. My parents signed me up for band and signed me up for flute lessons. From my flute lessons, I went off to, I grew and grew and grew, and then finally went off to college studying jazz flute. That was something that I really wanted to do. So I studied jazz flute in college. I won all kinds of wonderful competitions. It was a part of me. It all started with my grandmother. My grandmother was a hard worker. She worked in the factories. She worked the land. Her hands were coarse. Her body was bent over. And she had spent a lot of time just taking care of her kids, taking care of me, taking care of her family. She was an artist at heart. And that's what I really loved about my grandmother. From her, I became an artist. And that's what I do.